Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. I have with me a special guest. I have with me Dr. Olga Perez Flora, who I turns out is one of my neighbors. It's so much interesting to learn all these things about people, and it so happens she's my neighbor. Olga, welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining me. So let's talk about you because I know a little bit about you. I don't know a whole lot. So, where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Thank you for asking. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. Lived there until I was about 19 years old when I left to go to college. And my parents are still in the area, not in the city proper, but just outside of New Orleans. And just had such a rich musical and cultural and diverse growing up situation in that wonderful city.
Oh, I bet you did. I've been down there my fair share of times, and it's a unique place to go to. It's got a unique heritage. It's got a unique blend of people, and that's the best part about it. So, if you don't mind me asking, what high school did you graduate from down there? Just let's throw out the alma mater. Why not?
I love it. That's such a great question because New Orleans, I mean, I know everybody like you where you went to high school is really special, but New Orleans has this really rich culture of Catholic and parochial high schools. And I went to St. Mary's Dominican High School, which just was a wonderful school for me. I still have a group of girlfriends that I'm very close to. It's an all girls Catholic college prep school, and I really feel like I got a great education while I was there.
Oh, good. Okay. So I assume you've been singing since you were a kid because all of us have learned to sing. But at what point in your life did you garner an interest in singing opera?
Well, I grew up singing musical theater in New Orleans. So I went to a private school first through eighth grade that had a great music program, and we did a musical every year. And when you were in middle school, you could audition for the leads. And so the first time I remember singing as a soloist and just being so excited was when we did The Wiz at Kehoe, France, the school that I went to. And then in high school, I joined the choir and I auditioned for and got into like honor choir and all state. And I was in the New Orleans Symphony Youth Chorale. And that chorale went to Carnegie Hall. A lot of choirs do this. You get to go and sing. And we sang some, just really amazing music by Mozart and Handel and Haydn. And I remember that was sort of when the classical bug bit me.
Hmm.
I do want to go back and say that I took about 10 to 12 years of classical ballet. My mother was a ballerina and I'm Cuban by heritage. And so for me, it's not like there was a moment. It felt like it was really gradual that my love of ballet and then in high school being in the Symphony Youth Chorale. And then I won a competition my senior year and the one of the judges said, "Hey, where are you going to college?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not quite sure. I'm thinking about this and that." And he said, "Would you come to Loyola? We'd love to have you audition for a scholarship." And I auditioned and I got a scholarship to sing. And I remember he said, "You could be a music major." And I said, "You can do that?" I didn't know you could do that because parents don't come from a musical background. And so I was shocked that you could major in music. Isn't it great that I'm now a professor here in the office?
Yeah, which we will get to here in a little bit. So,
Yeah.
so you started out doing musical theater, and then you graduated, as you said, to classical music. But what was your start? I mean, I'm sure maybe it was in college. What was your start to be opera? Because
Yeah.
that's such a unique. I mean, come on now, that is so unique. That what was the one thing that got you into it?
The moment that I really remember first hearing that I had a talent for that, I'll credit Ellen Frohnmeyer, who is still, I believe, teaching voice at Loyola University in New Orleans. I kept bringing in, she'd give me these wonderful songs, and I'd bring in some musical theater and some jazz. And I think I just was naive and just didn't really know what was going on. And so we were doing some musical theater, and she sort of stopped me in a lesson and she looked at me and she said, "Olga, I know you love musical theater, but your voice is more of like an operatic voice." And I remember thinking, I don't I don't know that I know what that means, you know? And so I said, "Well, what does that mean?" And she said, "You should go to the library." And I worked at the music library at Loyola. She said, go to the library and check out like 4 or 5 operas and watch them and then come back and talk to me. So I don't really remember what transpired after that, but I remember suddenly being like, yes, I'm an opera singer. So I think that Ellen, just put that seed in my mind, and then the ballet and the musical theater and my love of classical music all came together. The first opera I watched on a VCR tape was Le Nozze di Figaro by Mozart. And I remember just being like, oh, I get it. It's like musical theater, but in another language.
Well, some of it's sung in English, but you're right. A lot of it's sung in other languages.
Sure.
So I guess I'm a little confused on the timeline here, because you attended Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, but you also said that you went to Loyola.
Yeah.
So tell me how you went. Tell me your years in Loyola, and then how did you get to Flagstaff?
So I was at Loyola for 2 years, and Again, I just want to credit this to my naivete. I just didn't really know what going to college to study music was like. I am a late bloomer. I just really feel like it just took me a while of sort of stumbling in the dark. So I was at Loyola. Loyola is a wonderful program. But in my second year, I just started to feel like I need to get out of New Orleans. I need to go somewhere and just do something different. I'll say like I was feeling probably mentally and physically not super healthy. And I went to visit a friend in Flagstaff, which is where Northern Arizona University is. And I immediately fell in love with the town. And while I was there, I went to go practice because I was doing an opera in New Orleans. L'Incoronation di Popea by Monteverdi was the very first show I did. I had a very teeny tiny part. And I went to go practice, which I love that about my 18 or 19-year-old self. And I went and found a practice room at NAU, and I was practicing, and someone knocked on the door. And it turned out it was the head of the voice department, Dr. Judith Cloud. And I opened the door and she said, "Who are you?" I'm Olga.
I'm here practicing. Is this a problem?
I'm here. Yeah. And she was like, "Oh, great. We're actually doing auditions this weekend. Would you like to audition to come to school here?" And I was like, "Sure." And it was like the greatest moment of my life. I would say that was the turning point for me, a real just sort of rite of passage. I said, I'd love to audition. I don't have any audition clothes. I was going skiing later that day, so I auditioned in ski pants and a sweater, and I sang. They offered me a full ride, and I leapt and I went.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes a change of pace is good. Sometimes that change of scenery, that change of everything can spark that next phase in your life, which obviously it did. So you received a degree in vocal performance and music education from NAU, right? Did I get that right?
That's right. Yeah. I graduated first with my vocal performance degree, and I left for a little while, and then I decided I wanted to come back and do a music ed degree because I wanted to be a music teacher. So NAU has one of the best, if I can say this, music ed programs. It's just amazing. And what Dr. Copley and Dr. Cloud and all of the rest of the faculty there were doing, I wanted to go back and be a part of that. So they gave me another scholarship to come back. And I did a quick 1 year just taking all those music ed courses since I already had the vocal performance degree. And then I went student taught in Phoenix with Bart Evans, and that was a great experience. And then I got a job teaching elementary music. This is not on my resume, I don't think. I taught elementary music for about 4 years and directed musicals for the kids there, and started singing for Arizona Opera. And that was when everything changed.
Oh, I bet it did. I bet it did, because that's a major program out there.
Yeah.
Now you also went to school at Arizona State University in Tempe, right?
I did.
And that's where you got your master's.
I did.
And then from there, you went to the Ohio State University. So I said the Ohio State University.
Yeah.
And that's where you got your DMA, which for most people who don't know, that's Doctor of Musical Arts. And that was also in vocal performance, right?
Yep, that's right. I went to ASU, an incredible program. I had a wonderful time. I did my master's there. I studied voice with Ann Kopta and learned so much about acting and opera and took these just every class, everything at ASU. It was just the greatest program for me at the time. And I was singing for Arizona Opera full time. I was the mezzo soprano in the Marion Roos pull-in program. And so I was just like pulling double duty, singing, going to school, teaching. I was doing all the things. It was such a rich time in my life. And right at that same rich time, my husband Jamie's career was taking off, and he got called to sing at Glimmerglass in New York and then Pittsburgh Opera. Well, Pittsburgh Opera is a 2-year program. So we moved to Pittsburgh, and I sort of, things kind of settled a little bit. I taught at Point Park University, sang a little bit in town, but just then was just really feeling a calling to teaching voice. And so I applied to Ohio State and Cincinnati CCM, and I got into both. But what we then quickly found out was that I was pregnant. And so I had to go to the school that was going to give me the most money for the shortest amount of time, which was Ohio State. I won the presidential fellowship. And so I did my doctorate for $41, which is what you pay when you press the button to turn your dissertation in.
Well, okay.
So
that made it easier. That was, now I see why that decision was made.
Well, God bless them. The truth is, that's funny, but Dr. Robin Rice is an incredible voice teacher, and he took me into his studio, and I was thrilled to be studying with him. And I had great experiences there as well in the opera program and with Dr. Rice, who's now at Rice Shepherd School of Music in Houston. And just, yeah, I don't know. My life feels like sort of a series of very fortunate events.
Well, you know what? Sometimes it's good to be in the right place at the right time, and you're lucky to get through it. So that was good. Now, I'll ask you, do you remember what your DMA thesis was?
Oh, yes, I did.
What was your thesis on?
It was on Ernesto Lecuona, the Cuban song composer, on his 4 songs, Noche Azul, Siempre Mi Corazón, Siboney, and of course, the incredibly popular Malagueña.
Okay. All right. And what was, do you remember the title of it? I mean, was it an analysis of the 4 songs or an analysis of the conductor? I mean, of the composer?
I don't remember the title exactly. It was something like Ernesto Lecuona and his 4 songs, and then the names of the songs. It was something like that. I have to be honest, our oldest daughter, who you now know, Lucia, is almost 11. She was 1, and I just remember typing furiously every night, and I was singing in Eugene, Onegin in Vermont and typing and sending pages to be edited. And it was just, just a crazy time. My mom flew to Vermont so that she could watch the baby at night, so I could type all night and be in rehearsal all day. It was a crazy experience. I don't know that I'll ever go back and read that document.
That's good. That's pretty funny. And it's just one of those things when you are working on your doctorate. Most of the people that I know that have worked and finished their doctorate degree, especially DMAs, they're working full time while they're trying to get their DMA. So I feel your pain, and I understand. I bet it was quite chaotic at that time, especially, and I should mention your husband, Jamie, who is also a professor at UNM, who is also quite the accomplished singer. Between the two of you, I bet that would just make things even worse, didn't it? Just trying to get life organized.
It really, honestly, he and I support each other and help each other. It's the children part that's the hardest, because, and he would openly say this to anyone, he is a great father and he's so open to being with his kids, but the kids want their mom a lot. And so that's the piece that's the hardest, is that they want me to put them to bed. They want me to pick out their outfits, make their lunches, all of the things that moms do. So I would say it's really the being a mom part that is the hardest.
I understand. I
And
understand.
the most rewarding, but
No,
it is.
no, I'm not. I understand completely. So you are considered a, and I want to say it right. I always say it's a mezzo soprano. Define what a mezzo soprano is, please.
Sure. The word mezzo in Italian means middle. And so I'm a middle soprano. What I think is a little deceiving about that is that mezzo sopranos tend to have quite a range. And so I would say I sing mostly in a 2 octave range, but sometimes I'm required to sing in a 2.5 octave range. Um, I would say that publicly right now, I sing up to a B5. But I can sing as low as an A3 very comfortably and very easily. So it's about the consistency of the range. The mezzo soprano versus a soprano has a bit of a warmer sound. So in layman's terms, it just might feel a little warmer, a little richer.
Okay, because it's not something that when I see the word mezzo soprano, I have my own definition of a mezzo soprano, and to me, it's somewhere between a soprano and an alto. So it's that
Sure.
halfway mark.
Yeah, yeah, that's
I
true
mean,
too.
that's my
Uh,
definition.
Yeah, so we use the word contralto in opera, and I can sing some contralto-y things, but when I think of alto, I think of choir. I think
Right.
of SATB, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, more. So the mezzo soprano is more of a term used in the operatic and classical vocal world.
Okay. Well, that makes more sense to me now. Thank you very much for defining that.
You're welcome.
So let's talk about what you're doing, what you've done in the past, because I've looked at your resume. Now, you've taught voice, and as you've mentioned before, you taught voice all over the country. I mean, you've taught just about everywhere. And not just teaching at universities, you've taught master classes, you've done presentations, you've done directing. You've got quite the resume that goes with your all the work that you've done. Is there a particular school, or is there a particular thing that you prefer to do? I mean, we both, just for definition, you are teaching at UNM at this time, but which do you prefer? If you had a choice, would you prefer to do master classes and teach and travel, or do you like the idea that you're established at a school?
Yeah, yes, yes, and yes. I love the stability of my position. I love the purposefulness of teaching on a daily basis. I also love when I get to travel and direct and sing. I'm doing a lot of singing right now, and out of, in the country and out of the country, and I have some great things coming up. And those things fuel me up to come back and teach. So to me, it feels symbiotic. It doesn't feel like if this, then that, or I don't feel like I have to pick one. I actually
Mhm.
am really happy with the way things have worked out for me, that I can teach. UNM is very supportive of me going out and singing nationally and internationally, and directing as well. Directing is a bit new for me in terms of directing big operas. This has been like a really great 3 years of me doing that. And it's very interesting to me. I'm still learning. It's something that I still feel like I need to learn a lot more about. I'm directing the Magic Flute, Die Zauberflöte, here in the spring, and I'm excited for this particular production. I feel like this is going to be a turning point for me because I've learned a lot in Albert Herring and the Three Feathers and Dido and Aeneas. These last few, I really just feel like I was gaining some chops, and now I'm ready to just fire it away and go, this is going to be so cool. So I guess I'm sorry that I'm not answering like, oh,
No, no, you actually did answer my question, because you said one fuels the other.
yeah.
And that's interesting, because you're not the only one I've heard say that. I mean, I've heard other people that I've interviewed that have said the same thing. Well, I can't really separate them because they're intertwined, because one fuels the other. Me teaching here helps me go out and do master classes. Master classes help me learn more to bring it back to my teaching and to my students. So you did answer my question.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
Now, so you are, and I want to make sure I get your title correctly, you are the assistant professor of voice and the head of the voice area at UNM,
That's
right?
yes.
Is this job what brought you to Albuquerque? Is it particularly this job?
Yeah, the assistant professor of voice position is what brought me here. I applied for several positions just right before COVID hit, and I made a lot of finals at some lovely, lovely universities. And this was the job that really called to me. I want to say I was very surprised when I really felt like I had made another decision to go to a different university. And Jamie really convinced me, like give Albuquerque a chance. Like don't discount UNM. And I was like, no, you're right. That's the fair thing to do. He and some of our friends who are constantly mentoring me through this process. And I came here and I instantly loved it. It reminded me of Phoenix. And I wasn't really prepared for that. And I loved Phoenix so much. So the mountains and, the beautiful weather and the people, I love the culture here. And of course, as a Cuban, I love having this Mexican culture and influence and these indigenous peoples to draw upon and to learn from and to buy beautiful jewelry and to hear their music. And I just instantly fell in love. And by about 3 o'clock on the day of the interview is a couple days long, the first day, I was like, oh, I hope I get this job.
Oh,
I
good.
really like it here. So when I got the call saying that I got the job, I was very excited. So we moved
And you
here.
said, so this would have been about what, 2019 that you moved here?
No, we moved here. They moved us during the pandemic.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I got the
Okay.
job. I think I got the call that first week of March in 2020. And I remember talking to the former chair and saying, there's this virus going around. It seems pretty serious. And he said, oh, we haven't had a case in New Mexico yet. And so I was like, oh, New Mexico's not going to get this. I forget, what were we calling it? Corona 19 or
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
And so I was like, great. And so then, I signed to the papers and then the world shut down. And then I was like, well,
I,
but
well, you came anyway, which we
okay.
appreciate, by the way, in the neighborhood, and we appreciate you at the school.
Oh, thanks.
Um, so, so as the assistant professor of voice at UNM, what are your duties there at UNM?
So my duties have shifted just a touch because Dr. Lau he's the dean of the Honors College now. And so Dr. Michael Hicks is now our chair here in the music department, and he was head of voice. So that's how the head of voice thing happened.
Okay.
It was a domino effect, a lovely domino effect. And so my duty is to coordinate and collaborate with the other voice professors to just sort of figure out which students go into which studio. As issues arise with students, we deal with those things together. So really my job is coordinating all of that. I have a studio right now of 11 applied voice students, a mix of undergraduates and graduate students in vocal performance, music education, theory and composition, and Bachelor of Arts. So I have that. And then I'm also the director of the stage director of the opera program. So I stage direct and I sort of cull everything together. I would say it's more like producing for the opera program. So those are my duties.
Okay. All right. Well, see, and now it keeps you very, very busy.
Yeah.
And now, so let's talk about your performing, because you are an in-demand performer. You have performed all over the United States. You have traveled all over the world. Matter of fact, let's talk about your performance when you went to Cuba, and you performed in Cuba. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, it was a dream come true. I'm Cuban American. I'm first generation. And so I had never been to Cuba. And in 2018, Jamie and I were invited to go to Cuba to sing with Maestro Leo Brouwer, famous guitar composer, contemporary composer, and the song composer, Jose Maria Vitier. So we did 2 separate concerts while we were there in Havana. We spent, I think it was 8 or 9 days there, and did 2 separate concerts with some really other wonderful artists. And we had some dear friends who traveled with us. And it was a really special and emotional time. And I got to meet family that I had never met before and just got to really see what's going on.
Okay. When was this? When did you get to do this?
This was, I think it was February of 2018,
Okay.
if memory serves me correctly.
Okay. Yeah, because that would be very, very special. Very special, especially as you said, you got to visit your homeland. You got to visit the land of your forefathers and got to perform there. I
Mhm.
bet that really was special. I bet that really hit here.
Yeah, it really did. It was
Okay.
yeah, it was a lot.
Okay, so now one of the big honors I noticed in looking up at your webpage, which by the way I will put down link down below for your webpage, you were the first place winner of the American Prize for Women's Art Song Division in 2022, which is a really, really long title for a really big honor. Tell me about this, please, because I had never heard of this particular competition until I looked it up.
Yeah, the American Prize, I'm not sure when it started, but someone named David Katz, a wonderful also musician, runs this prize. And it's great because when you are of a certain age, you can't apply for competitions, but this competition doesn't have an age limit. And so I applied a few years ago. I think it was also 2018, actually. And I made it to the finals, but I wasn't in the winner's circle. And so this last year, I decided during the pandemic, I was like, this is a good time to do some recordings. And my dear colleague, Dr. Kristen Ditlow, and I made some recordings. And then my friend, Gina Kafari, who lives in New York and teaches bassoon at NYU, she and I did some virtual recordings as well. And I decided, I want to do something for me and for fun. And so I submitted those. And then I found out that I made the finals, which was great. And I thought, this is great. I made the finals again. And then David sent me an email and he said, hey, I don't want to announce this yet, but I want you to know that you won first prize. And I just was shocked. I was so shocked that I won, and really just what an honor it was. So it is a virtual prize. There are lots of renowned opera singers and classical teachers who are on the panel. I believe it's quite a panel, like a lot of people. And then I got some really nice feedback and a beautiful certificate that I have up here in my office. And so, yeah, it's just a great honor.
Nice. Okay, yeah, because I looked at the webpage and I was like, I'd never heard of this before. This was
Yeah.
pretty cool, and it's quite the honor to win. So my
Yeah.
compliments to you.
Thank you.
Now, you do you perform locally? Do you go with Opera South? Do you perform with Opera Southwest, or do you perform in the Santa Fe Opera? Do you do any local performances?
So I have had the privilege of singing for Opera Southwest twice in the last year. So last year I sang in Frida, the opera Frida, and I had a ball. I mean, the roles that I sang were so fun and outrageous. I got to curse Frida out in Spanish, and we had such a fun time. It was just really great. And then we just closed Zorro, where I sang the role of Toypurina, the abuelita in the show, with Maestro Baresi conducting, and really great cast and crew and the orchestra. It was great. It was a beautiful show. And so, yeah, it's been a great time with Opera Southwest. Santa Fe Opera, we've been collaborating with them over the last year. I don't sing with them, but I've been collaborating with them for our students. And so doing quite a bit of student work, like if they need a student to come sing in the chorus, we just had 4 of our students go sing in This Little Light of Mine, the African American opera that just premiered. It was beautiful. I got to go see it. And Andrea Feinberg over at Santa Fe Opera has written a new dialogue to the Magic Flute, and we're going to be using it here. So there's just been a lot of really lovely collaborations that I hope, just continue to grow.
Okay, and I know you do post some of your upcoming performances on your webpage. So if anybody's interested, they can always visit the webpage and they can find where you're going to be performing next. So this is going to be a kind of a tough question because I ask odd questions. So, what's the most memorable opera that you have performed in? Do you have any one particular one that sticks out?
Oh my gosh. I mean,
See?
my mind instantly goes to Traviata. So for me, and it's weird because the mezzo roles, I've done both Flora and Annina. They're comprimario roles. They're small roles. It's the opera I've performed the most. I think I've done Traviata 7 or 8 times, and I love it so much. I just, it's trite. Everybody's going to say that. I love it from the inside out. I love to be in it. And I would say that one of my most memorable performances was at Arizona Opera with just a stellar cast. And yeah, it would be just maybe too long to get into, but that particular performance was really exciting and really fun and artistically super fulfilling. And Jamie and I were both in it. I think we were engaged. I don't think we were married yet. I mean, there's so many. I've sung Carmen quite a bit.
That's what I
And
was going to ask. I figured you'd say Carmen because I looked at your resume and you've done the lead in Carmen numerous times.
I
But it's
have,
interesting that you said La Traviata
I know.
that you prefer.
Well, it's because Carmen's stressful. It's,
Well, it shouldn't be as many times as you've performed it,
I
but
know
it's also a very demanding role. I get that.
that's what it is. It's a demanding role. I love it so much. Playing the castanets stresses me out every time. It's the castanets, and so the dancing scene in yeah, it just that I don't know why it just stresses me out. I love it. I love the music. I love so many things about it. I have
But
to say,
still La Traviata is the one that you would say is your most memorable opera that you've performed. Still,
well, I mean, maybe like now we're going into this new era where thank goodness people are doing Spanish operas, and so both Frida and Zorro also hold very special places, and I hope that I get to do them again. And I just have such a history with Traviata, But I do have to say that. For me, singing at Opera Company Middlebury, which is, I would say my home companies are Opera Southwest and Opera Company Middlebury. And Jamie and I sang A Streetcar Named Desire there. That was just incredible. The cast, the director, the conductor, the orchestra, everything about it was amazing. It's just that Streetcar's so heavy, the story. But
yeah, very drama.
that is definitely among my top favorites. It's just so hard, Michael. You're making it hard for me to pick.
That's fine. I get it. No, we'll stick with La Traviata. We'll stick with that one. So, all right. So I've got time for one last question for you before we run out of time.
All right.
And I asked this of all the musicians, and I know musicians have the best stories. So give me strangest gig, funniest story of something that happened to you. Give me a good one because I love stories from musicians.
Okay, this is very easy. When we were young artists, Jamie and I we would go to New York for, a month, as most young artists do. And we'd do auditions and we'd spend time with friends. And so we were in New York at a friend's apartment one year, and we were getting ready to leave. We're getting ready to go back to Pittsburgh. We had done our auditions. Everything had gone well. It was Christmas time. We were pretty poor. Okay. So we were like clearing 20 grand a year together, like that kind of poor. And we're at a friend's, and our friend answers a phone call, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's chit-chatting. And then our friend says, hey, Jamie and Olga, are you guys free to go sing at Martha Stewart's house tomorrow? Somebody canceled. And like almost at the same time, he said no. He said no, and I said yes. And I was like, yes. And so anyway, we sang a Christmas party at Martha Stewart's house that year. Don't ask me the year, I don't remember, 2008, something like that, 2009. And we went to her house in Bedford, New York. And when you get there, there's a golf cart with a security guy, and he drives you in, and so you have to park your car far away. And he drove us in, and we go into the home, and they took our coats, and Martha was making eggnog, and there was nobody else there. It was just Jamie and I. And she said, Olga, would you come taste the eggnog? And I said, sure. And so I tasted the eggnog, and I go, and she goes, what's wrong? And I go, there's a lot of alcohol in there. And she goes, that's the point. Takes the eggnog away from me. And so we got a tour of both homes. She has a summer home and a winter home next to each other. Both, of course, stunning and gorgeous in the grounds. But later on, so we were just singing Christmas carols with two other people. So there were four of us singing carols and walking around. And we're in the middle of singing these Christmas carols, and the soprano sort of looks at me, and she's looking, and she she taps me on the arm, and I look over, and there's Richard Gere and his wife, and they're just standing there listening to us sing. And I'm like, angels, we have, like, and for whatever reason, it's like my little solo moment. And then he comes up to me after and he taps me in the arm right here, this arm, people, this arm. And he goes, you have such a beautiful voice. And I was like,
thank you.
like, and he walks away, and Jamie and the other guy go, who is that? And Will and I are like, that was Richard Gere. And Jamie goes, he's really short.
Oh no, that's funny. That's funny. I tell you, story. Yeah, musicians have the most wonderful gig stories, I gotta admit. All right, so we're running out of time. I'm sorry, that was good. We're running out of time. I want to thank Dr. Olga Perez Flora for joining me today. I want to thank you for all you do, for all the good things you're doing for opera in New Mexico. I want to thank you for being in my neighborhood because it's awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, we will catch you next time.